Sunday afternoon then, and 29 cars take to the grid for round one of the new look FIA GT Championship. But this is also the 101st running of the Royal Automobile Club Tourist Trophy. The first event was held in September 1905 when it was just one lap, and that lap was 52 miles long round the Isle of Man. Stanley Napier was the first winner in an Arrol Johnson, and it took him 6 hours to complete the course. Last year's event here, again the Tourist Trophy, was won by Aston Martin, the DBR9, driven by Pedro Lamy and Peter Cox, and it came home just 2 seconds ahead of teammates David Brabham and Darren Turner in a similar car. That was Aston Martin's first win in 44 years, but they may not have to wait too long to do it again. As the formation lap gets underway, you'll see those 6 Astons on the grid. But there's stiff competition here. 2 Maserati MC12s defending their title, 2 Celine S7Rs, 1 Corvette and a Lamborghini Murcielago. Qualifying hasn't been kind to the B Racing team though, and their Murcielago ended up slowest of the GT1 cars. But Aston Martin wasn't that lucky either, and the highest place, DBR9, is third on the grid, almost 2 seconds shy of a pole position that Mike Hazeman grabbed by half a second. And Hazeman leads the field now as they come out of Luffield onto the start-finish line at a steady 45 to 55 miles an hour, waiting for the green light that signals that the first round of 2006 will be underway. And there it goes, pedal to the metal. No overtaking until you cross the start-finish line, but this race is underway. It's a nice clean start for Hazeman. He's got a Celine looking down the outside of him as they head towards turn 1. And there's still lots of water on the track, and that's a Race Alliance Aston Martin spinning in the pack there, yellow flags waving. There's been a touch between 2 cars, and I can't see who the other one is. Here comes our race leader, and it is not the Corvette, it's not even a Celine, it's the number 5 Aston Martin heading down towards us. That's Andrea Piccini leading Jarek Yanis in the Celine, and behind that in third place it's Maserati. Mike Hazeman's dropped right back to 7th, 8th, 9th place there as they round this sweeping right-hander. Mike Hazeman from pole position has been gobbled up by half a dozen cars at least. Aston Martin leads Celine, Maserati, Aston Martin, Hazeman trying to recover, second of the Maseratis, then the leading GT2 car, the Scuderia Cost number 62, Andrew Kirkcaldy going round the outside and taking a place there, touch between the second Scuderia Cost car and one of the AF Corsa Ferraris. Didn't see who that was in the pack. You're looking at number 2 there, Jamie Davis in the second of the Maseratis. So it's Piccini from Jarek Yanis from Bertolini in the number 1 Maserati, and then the 23 Aston Martin of Babini, and then Christophe Bouchou is behind that in the number 7 car. So it's the Phoenix Aston in the lead. They're still close together, and it is still very slippery, as you can see by the presence of this number 62 F430 right up among the leaders. That really shouldn't be happening, but the wet track has allowed him to stay on the pace as Jamie Davis and now Andrew Kirkcaldy start to do door handle with Babini in the number 23 car. There's Hazeman trying to make his recovery, but that Corvette looks a little bit of a handful in these conditions, and I'm not entirely certain that he hasn't got completely the wrong tyres for this. Some of the grid have opted for full wets. Some of the grid has taken the brave choice, expecting it to dry up. The weather forecast says it will rain later, but the clouds are clearing, the sky is brightening, and if this track dries, everybody on intermediates or slicks, and I think there may be 1 or 2, is going to get a big bonus, and all those on wets are in lots of trouble. We'll have to wait and see how that develops as we get into lap 2.
And now we're going to jump right to the end of the race and the battle between Michael Bartels in the Maserati and Celine's Jarek Yanis.
Here is the second place car. This is Jarek Yanis in second place, and now 7 seconds behind the race leader. While we've been riding with Fabio Babini, Jarek Yanis has been quietly picking off the seconds, clicking off the laps, and inching towards Michael Bartels in that number 1 Maserati. And he is now close enough to believe that the impossible is possible. That on its first outing in this championship, he could take this car and this team to the top step of the podium. Traffic won't help him, and he has got traffic at the moment. The Balf Celine in front of him at the moment is definitely slower, and this is not where you want to run up against the traffic. It happens to everybody, of course. The race leader might well be slow, but Michael Bartels here isn't pushing, remember, so he can choose his moments, really. And Michael Bartels, the team will be telling him on the radio, they'll be holding out the pit boards. He's managing the gap now. That's what his job is, just to keep that Celine behind him. Looking up the track now in the background of these pictures to see how close Jarek Yanis actually is, because the gap over the line was 7 seconds. But when you're closing at a couple of seconds a lap sometimes, that can quickly come down, and if we can't see him at the back of the hangar straight there, then I don't think that Michael Bartels can see him in his mirrors either. But again, a slower GT2 car, and that was the 75 Porsche. Was that parked by the side of the road? That was Emmanuel Collard and Luca Riccitelli's teammate car, but no, it's moving on. Flame now from the back of the Maserati, looking a lot happier with enough petrol to go the distance. So I think whatever worries we might have had about Maserati weren't being shared, were they, by the rest of the Maserati team. And there is the Celine in the background, and this is second place. Well, Michael Bartels can't see much in the mirrors of that MC12 Maserati, but pretty soon I think he's going to start seeing blue and white, and he doesn't want to see that because he'll know exactly what it means. And that's the number 56 Ferrari. Now you saw Tim Sugden and Iraj Alexander's car go out with problems, but Antoine Goss and Peter Kuderman still going in the second JMB racing car. This is second place though in GT1. This is the chase for the checkered flag. We've been racing for almost 3 hours, and the battle is really getting quite intense now. Bartels though is still circulating just about at a comfortable pace. I don't think he's stretching himself or the car, and I think someone on the pit wall has done the mathematics and told him don't worry about it. There's is going to be a very close finish though as they head towards the checkered flag though. He's on his final lap. The clock has ticked over the 3 hours, so the checkered flag is being unfurled. They'll wait for Bartels to cross the line to drop it, and that really says it all. Jarek Yanis is not close enough, and unless Michael Bartels has a terrible lapse of concentration in the next minute or so, it's all over, done and dusted for the Vitaphone Maserati team. Strong performance from drivers and team, you have to say. They read the conditions right, did everything right, and they emerged with the right strategy and took the lead and held it, and it's all paid off for them. And now they're going to take the first win of the 2006 season, and that's a brilliant way to begin the defence of the 2005 title, because they are effectively the only title holders in this series this year. Everybody else has gone off to do other things, but the Vitaphone team defending its crown. And again, there was a little puff of smoke there. I'm sure there was. I don't think everything's as good as it could be, and that makes this doubly effective performance from the team and from Michael Bartels. If they have got a problem, they've concealed it well, and they've handled it well, and they've managed it well, and not just done that, but also pulled off a very convincing win indeed. Because as he heads towards the checkered flag, there's about 4 or 5 seconds, but there it is. Michael Bartels takes that checkered flag, wins the 2006 our Royal Automobile Club Tourist Trophy. 4.5 seconds is the gap. Big cloud of smoke from the back of the Maserati. I think that was just a bit of pit wall bravado from Michael Bartels to help the team in its celebrations. And Zaxby will surely be celebrating as well, because they have pulled off second place. But Michael Bartels stops as soon as he goes over the line. Here is the GT2 race leader, This is Matteo Bobbi, and he is very comfortably the leader in GT2 as he's passed by Thomas Biaggi in the second Maserati. 5 cars on the same lap after 3 hours, which is not bad going. And then we're going to get a reasonably close finish in GT2 as well, as Matteo Bobbi is about 14 seconds ahead of Emmanuel Collard in the EB Motors Porsche, and behind that in third place it will be his teammate Mika Salo, so the team will get 2 cars on the podium. And there is the GT2 checkered flag as Matteo Bobbi takes the AF Corsa Ferrari over the line, and he too celebrates with a little bit of showmanship in front of the team on the pit wall. So that's a fairly standard procedure. I think he's stopping as well. Well, that is very strange. Perhaps they're in an anxious hurry to get back to the podium. But what about second and third places? They're not stopping. So 2 cars cross the line in a cloud of smoke. Here's a final leaderboard that probably won't make Mika Salo very happy. But despite that, the team has got pretty much what it came for, especially Matteo Bobbi.
Yeah, it was really great. I mean, when you have a team like this, a tire like this, and a teammate like this, the only chance is win. So I just do my job. I'm so happy because after one difficult year in USA, back here it's like my home, so we'll see.
And here's another happy driver, and no wonder. Though the form book said this would be a Maserati win, qualifying said different. And even now, the margin is a lot smaller than expected, and a Celine in second place is quite a big surprise, at least to us. But at the end of the day, it's the result that counts. Here's the race leader though, and they're pulling away, these two, at about a second a lap from the squabble that's going on over third, fourth and fifth. We've had a look at that. So with a clear track, Andrea Piccini is doing his best to get away from a clearly quicker Zach Speed Celine. And Jarek Yanis is really just telling him every corner they go to, he's showing him a bit of blue and white in the mirror, saying, look, I'm here and I'm going to do it any minute. You just leave the door fractionally open for, and that's going to do the trick for them. That's one of the Renault Porsches, number 52. Well, they've been having so much trouble with that car during practice. The transmission's tying itself in all kinds of knots, and that's the inevitable result about 3 times an hour. That was Luca Mora, and again this pass at turn 5, and it doesn't come off for Jarek Yanis, but he's got a line now. He's through on the inside, is he? No, they are door handle to door handle with £1 million worth of sports cars, and it still doesn't work. Closing on Moortail in traffic, that was the 66 Porsche. Oh, and here, now on the inside. No, and still Piccini closes the door on Jarek Yanis, and Yanis trying to sell him the dummy on every corner. Cannot pull it off. Out onto the start-finish straight. Can he get tucked up underneath the rear wing of that Aston Martin and get a drag down to the first corner? No, he can't. He's not close enough. It's only 600 metres long, this front straight. Just not enough room for him to get really close and tag him in turn 2. But they are coming up on the Porsche. Now watch what Jarek Yanis can do for that. Piccini dives to the left of it. Yanis is going to follow through. There's the Vertigo in front as well. So they both go past that one at a time. No change there in the traffic. And still Piccini is resisting. Oh, and look at that, another dive for the inside. Doesn't work, nearly lost it. And down the hill now towards turn 5. Well, he's tried here before at least twice. And is he going to try again? Piccini moves over to take the line, and there's nothing that you can do about that except have a little spin as a result of your over-enthusiasm. Jarek Yanis is pressuring Andrea Piccini. And Piccini doing a really good job of trying to drive his race and resist all of that and keep his mind clear and focused. This is the hardest thing for a race driver, to be the bloke under pressure. And look at this, Yanis has got to be through here, somewhere in the bowl, at the very bottom of the circuit as they go slightly downhill still. Jarek Yanis on the tail of Andrea Piccini. There's the Vertigo in front, but we knew they were catching it, and now Yanis dives to the outside. This looks good. This is the one. He's got the line. The track keeps going right here, keeps going right there, and now he's got to run uphill ahead of him, and he'll use all the grunt in that Celine. Already he's a couple of lengths ahead of Andrea Piccini, who closes up towards the top of the hill, but the Celine has definitely got the legs on him. And it is Jarek Yanis who is in the lead ahead of Andrea Piccini, and you just wait till he comes past the grandstands now. He's heading out onto the start-finish straight to the top of the hill, and the local fans will be on their feet when they see him come past in the lead. There it is again. Just had the opportunity there to squeeze in. They were close, but they never touched. That's proper gentlemanly racing. And here comes the race leader. The crowd indeed rising to their feet and waving as Jarek Jannes comes into view ahead of his rival. And what of GT2 while all that's been going on? As we get our breath back, here it is. It's Jamie Mello, Andrew Cicaldi and Tim Mullen for second and third. In fourth place is still Emmanuel Collard in the Porsche, but he is now being caught from fifth place by Mika Salo, who is recovering from a spin and is a couple of seconds a lap quicker than Collard at the moment. So 58, 62 and 63, first, second and third in the GT2 class, and they are moving away from everybody else, and there's very wide there. Jamie Mello right out on the grass. Andrew Cicaldi applying pressure here in GT2, and we go on board in the GT1 car of Thomas Biaggi. This is the number 2 Maserati, and where has he gone to in our picture? There he is, coming over the crest of the hill now. We thought he had problems earlier on, and he is now one lap down on the race leader. So there is definitely something amiss with this car. Whether it's just in the tyre department or whether it is something more serious, it's been puffing smoke. We've seen that a couple of times in the race, but it doesn't seem to be an issue, and he's sliding the tail end around there as if he's got all the power he ever needed to get up that hill. This is 13. This is the Lamborghini in 8th place. This is Christophe Bouchou, who is reeling in that Maserati in front of him. Biaggi is 7th, and he is being caught, and he's being caught by this car. There is the number 1 Maserati. There is the Lamborghini. A little bit of puff smoke from the back end of that as well. But that was probably just tyre smoke. Flames on the overrun, and that is in the gravel trap again. That's Luca Morro with this Renault Porsche. As we said, the transmission and the diff is a problem at the moment, and it tends to tuck the nose in on the way into corners and flick the back out on the way out, which is not what you want. Into the pits comes Andrea Piccini. This is early. He probably has used the best of his tyres, and that's why the Celine found it so easy to get past. They've made the choice of coming in, and it started the ball rolling. They're all in here. Here's 24 Pescatori handing over to Miguel Ramos. This circuit is very abrasive, and it's quite hard on tyres. All of those changes of direction, the ones you see on the map, work the tyres really hard, and the cars that are easiest on their tyres will be able to run longest and to their fuel window rather than to a tyre window. So what we're seeing here are the cars that use their tyres hard, and it's possibly no coincidence that what we've got is a pit lane full of Aston Martins. We're looking at the number 24 car, as we said, and Miguel Ramos is now behind the wheel as the tyre men get to work. You can't touch the car while it's refuelling. You're allowed to change drivers and clean the windscreen, that's all. You can't touch it until the fuel line is disconnected, and then they change the tyres, and smoking it away as out comes Jean-Denis Delatraz in number 5 ahead of Miguel Ramos in 24. That's the way they went in. Behind that, Carl Wendlinger, 33, the Race Alliance Aston Martin. And as we say, it's all Aston Martins. Everybody else is still out there. So something to be said about tyres. We're on board with the number 23 car, Fabrizio Gollin, handing over to Fabio Barbini. They came in second place, and obviously we have to wait for everybody to stop before we see how it's settled down. There's not a huge amount of time to be gained in these pit stops. Here's the number 11 car, and it might have, I'd have thought, used its tyres a bit more gently, because it comes, this one, without traction control, which is allowed in GT1 and is fitted to the number 9 car. One of the things on the list of to-do features in the coming weeks for the Balfe team is traction control to bring this car right up to modern spec. But usually cars with traction control tend to eat tyres a little bit more fiercely than those without. Here is 23 rejoining, as we say, probably in the same place, because it's refueling by legislation. The size of the fuel pipe is limited by the regulations here, and it has to be gravity fed, so you can't pump it in, you can't fuel the car any faster. You can only have 100 litres in the petrol tank because that's how big they are, so there's nothing to be gained. Here comes the race leader then. He has run a little bit longer than everybody else. He is practically the last car in GT1 to stop. I think the Lamborghini's still out there, but it's the only one. So in comes Jarek Yanis, and he comes in with about 20 seconds in his pocket. That's what has happened since he got past that number 5 car. He's pulled away about 20 seconds on everybody else. Sasha Burt taking over. He's bundled Jarek Yanis rather unceremoniously out of the car, but you have to do it like that, unfortunately. There is absolutely no room. They call them GT cars, and there's supposedly a seat for a second driver, but there's absolutely no room inside. It's not easy to get in or out. You do need help, and your co-driver is the man who will pull the straps tight. Maserati in the pits as well. That's Bertolini handing over to Michael Bartels from 3rd place. So I was wrong, there were still cars out there as Sasha Burt heads out there ahead of number 5. Yes, he's going to rejoin on track ahead of number 5, so he's still in 1st place, still about 20 seconds to the good, and not quite as quick around here as Jarek Yanis on his home ground, so we'll wait to see how this race develops in the next few laps.
And it was to prove to be victory for the Czech driver Yanis on his home circuit at Brno and his co-driver Sasha Burt. Due to the weight penalties, the first Maserati down in 4th. And later in the season as well at Budapest in round 8 of the championship to be precise, the Yanis and Burt duo and the Zakspeed Saleen would once again register a new victory, the second one for the big surprise of the season. It's a well-prepared team, a well-driven machine, and the American GT was always at the top of the field at the Hungaroring. As we take the last lap with Yanis, this car really so well suited to the Hungarian track. And as he cruises around the final bend then, a second victory for Yanis and Burt. What a great season for them.
Round 3 of the championship took the teams to Oschersleben in Germany, and on the short, twisty circuit with very few opportunities for overtaking, it seemed that Pole Sitting Corvette was on course for a result until the alternator failed and its race was over. Winner last time out on home ground, Jarek Yanis hoped to return the favour this week for German co-driver Sasha Burt, but tyre troubles intervened, and this luckily harmless spin took them out of the equation, though the car continued to the finish in 4th place. But Maserati was already playing out a strong strategy, and the race was now a 1-2 for the home team. The car may be Italian, but Vitaphone is a German outfit, and a 1-2 finish was just what they wanted. The GT2 story was a little less settled, and it seemed that just about any of the Ferraris might have taken the win here, but in the end it was Scuderia Ecos who made all the headlines. Tim Mullen's aerobatics were the big surprise of the afternoon, But though his brief airborne spell at turn 1 meant he gave up second place to the AF Forza team in the shape of the 59 car driven by Rui Aguas and Mika Salo, not long afterwards, Andrew Kirkcaldy converted the Scottish team's third straight pole position into their first international win of the series. So as we arrive at round 4 in Belgium, the Maserati duo of Bartels and Bertolini have a narrow lead over Yanis and Bert, with Aston Martin cruise third. In GT2, Emmanuel Collard and Luca Riccitelli have a 1-point lead over the top Ferrari crews, and that's just not what we were expecting at this stage of the series.
And now we come to round 4, and it is, in every sense of the words, the big one. The Proximus 24 Hours of Spa is the longest race of the year and brings with it a double helping of points. Qualifying is a trifle academic in terms of a 24-hour race, but there has to be a grid, and so there were 3 separate qualifying sessions, all combined to set the starting order. 2 of those sessions took place in the cool of the evening when the track was fastest, and it was then that all the grid times were set. The quickest car by 1/10 of a second was the Phoenix Aston Martin, driven by Andrea Piccini, and behind him came the Maserati duo, lining up in reverse order. Jamie Davis was fractionally quicker than Michael Bartels, who was in front of the number 23 Aston Martin, and then the GLPK Carsport Corvette. Racing on the team's home ground, they were the quickest in the morning warm-up ahead of the race start this afternoon, making their car perhaps the one to watch. The GT2 story was a fascinating compendium, 6 Ferraris in a row, and once again Scuderia Ecos was the cream of the crop. 4 races, 4 pole positions, the third for Andrew Kirkcaldy. Ominously though, we just saw next year's new Porsche here in testing role, entered in the G2 class, bang on the pace, half a second faster than the GT2 pole time. So 24 hours ahead then, double championship points spread across the schedule so that half points are awarded for positions after 6 hours, half again for positions at 12 hours, and full race points again for positions at 24 hours, giving this the potential to be a championship deciding weekend. It's a big long race, and as they come down the hill for the rolling start, don't expect the usual jostling for position. These gentlemen should be very clear about this. There's an awful long way to go, and this is no time for lap 1 heroics. Andrea Piccini in the number 5 Aston Martin leads the Maserati pair onto the Camel Straight as they come up the top of the hill. Everybody else more or less still in grid order. A little bit of dodging about there. Is this a challenge? It's coming on to be a challenge as we go on board with Jamie Davis in the number 2 Maserati. Second place ahead of his teammate behind him. There's the number 1 car of Andrea Bertolini. And look, half a lap into it, not even that much, and this top 3 have already pulled away from the 4th place Aston Martin. That's number 23, driven by Christian Pescatori as they go downhill on this circuit towards Rivage, down towards the right-hander. It is number 5 from number 2, from number 1, from 23, then it's 9, the Celine, then it's the Corvette, number 4. That was the 33 Aston Martin, the Race Alliance car. Carl Wendlinger starting it here, and you'll spot some odd ones out. The championship is here in force, but this is the Proximus 24 Hours of Spa. It's a big race in Belgium, and there are lots of cars that we haven't seen before in the FIA GT series, all here today as well, all in the hunt for points, believe it or not. So if they finish ahead of championship regulars, they will be taking points away from them. Quite a harsh situation, and look at this. Davis has got past Piccini, and behind that Bertolini is lining up to get through as well. So it's a slight change of order as they go down the hill for the first time. Into the world's most formidable racetrack corner at Eau Rouge at 180 miles an hour, straight up the hill, the other side towards Les Combes, and then on to the Camel Straight here. longest straight part of the circuit. There are straights here, but it's the only bit that hasn't really got any kind of a curve in it at all. And Piccini tries to undo the damage, just shows the nose of the Aston Martin to Jamie Davis. Gap back to number 23, that's Bert Long in, that's Kurt Wendlinger. And then comes that odd one out, the Corvette we haven't seen before. That's number 34 in the mix there. And it's all about this, and it is all about Piccini losing that place, is it? Yes, indeed. Bertolini muscles through on the way into the bus stop. So it's Maserati first and second. 2 leads 1, leads 5. And Andrea Piccini is third. Well, they look pleased with themselves, don't they? Just 2 laps into it almost, and they're already in first and second places. But Andrea Piccini doesn't know about giving up. Only a young driver, but he is very fast indeed. We've seen it time and time again in this championship, how quick he can be. And that car, we have to say, is usually very quick in the early stages of the race, and it tends to tail off towards the end of its stint and again towards the end of the 3 hours. But there's an awful long way to go, and although it was in pole position, don't expect to see it running at pole speed. Qualified in the evening when the track was cool, 2 minutes 14.9. Now it's afternoon, the track's warmer, it's going to be closer to the 17s, 18s, perhaps even slower than that until the track cools down, and then the pace will be steady. So no heroics, really, fingers crossed. There shouldn't be any heroics in this race, but Andrea Piccini looking a bit heroic and very racy behind that number 1 car of Andrea Bertolini. No doubt about it, he wants past, but he's not going to get it, I don't think. Kicking up dust here, and that's not something you see often at Spa. It's been very dry this week, and the grass at the edges of the circuit is dry and dusty. Normally Spa doles out an unhealthy helping of rain and showers, but we've had none of that during the run-up to today. And unseasonally or unsparly, it's blue skies, puffy white clouds and blazing sunshine and high temperatures on track and in the cockpit. Still the same story then, and the Maserati's beginning to pull away. They tried it at the start. Look, as we watch a replay, Longin in the Corvette thought he'd have a go down the inside of Pescatori, but it didn't come off, lost a place to the Celine. And we're on board with Luca Drudi at the back end of this big grid. Look at this, Piccini's out in front, he's got past both the Maseratis. Jamie Davis is having none of it and stuffs it up the inside, just late breaks him into the bus stop, and they're applauding that, and so they should. On board again with Jamie Davis. There isn't really a gap there, but he weaved his way through, brakes locked up on and off the pedal, absolutely pulled it off, and just a little touch between them. Very racy at this early stage of the proceedings.
Just after full darkness falls at Spa, the 6-hour marker is reached, and that's where the first points of the weekend are awarded. Here's the leaderboard, and with non-championship regulars being awarded points, this is a very harsh judgment. It's going to hurt Scuderia Ecos in GT2, for example. And here's the championship overview after 6 hours then. Probably the biggest change is that Collard and Riccitelli have finally relinquished their GT2 lead.
Great news for Phoenix Racing is that the number 5 Aston Martin still leads GT1 after 6 hours and 148 laps, but it is just 8 seconds ahead of the number 1 Maserati. As you can see from these pictures, there's no circuit lighting at Spa like there is at Le Mans. So once they leave the pit straight, they're out into the darkness. They're in the forest of the Ardennes, deep among the pine trees, and visibility is not of the best, as you can see. 58 leads 59 in GT2, and Luca Drudi, who we saw earlier on at the start on board, he's in 3rd place, Spiker in 4th place. Then it's the first of the Scuderia Ecos cars. And there's Tim Mullen down in 8th place in GT2. So it hasn't been going terrifically well for them after a great start from pole position. but there is a long way to go. 6 hours and 24 have elapsed, which means there's 18 left, even with my mathematics. And this is Tim Mullen coming in 18th overall, 8th in the class, but everything's under control. And in these long watches of the night, a lot of the teams will mark time. If you choose not to, there may be something to be gained. But as we say, conditions are not of the best. The second points award is made at 12 hours at 4 a.m. in the morning, just when your metabolism is at the lowest, and in the period of a 24-hour race when even the top teams would normally be resting their top drivers and waiting for dawn, which is due about 5:30 a.m. So those are the race positions. Here are the championship points after 12 hours. Looking good for Piccini and Delatraz, and it's looking good for AF Corsa in GT2 as well. Aston Martin then, race leader for the 4th time, but this one is the convincing one. They took the lead on lap 171. It's now lap 294. So it's been the race leader for 123 laps. And now, as daylight breaks, it has got 1 lap in hand. Little bit of nose work on the 63 Ferrari after a touch in the night, just putting the nose cone back together with gaffer tape, of course. As the race goes into a new phase, it's daylight, it's dry, and it's a push to the finish. Or it is if you haven't got an oil leak, and this car has, probably. The number 4 Corvette is in 3rd place. It's been looking solid all through the night, but now it's starting to lose oil or use it, and the team aren't yet certain which it is. So there could be a question mark over that one. You're looking at the race leader of the 24 hours at Spa, the number 5 Aston Martin, being chased and gradually caught by the number 1 Maserati of Eric van der Poel. And you're looking at wet and intermediate tyres. The weather forecasters say there is rain on the way. The weather radar shows a very thin band of rain heading in this direction, and there it is. It might be thin, but it's falling thick and fast here. So rain at Spa, and this could change everything. It's dry here where the race leader is, and that is so often the case on a racetrack which is spread out over such a large distance and in such terrain as this. It can be raining in one part of the circuit, bone dry and sunny in another. And as we come up to pit stop time, everybody's going to have a decision to make. Couple of hours to go. There's rain falling in places. The forecasters say it won't last long. What tyres would you put on the car when it came in for its scheduled stop? Would you be brave and go with slicks? Would you be braver still and go with intermediates? Your decision if you're the team leader, and that's what they're all worrying about right this moment. This is GT2, 2nd place, 58, as you just saw from the caption, 59. The other AF Corsa car leads GT2, have they had done since stopped. Here's the Aston Martin in, and a driver change, and those look to me like slick tyres on the ground beside it. So it doesn't appear that we're going to take a chance on intermediates or wet. Maserati down the hill, and that's a change of leadership. But that happens every time they stop for the pits, unless they happen to stop on exactly the same lap. So just taking their time, strapping in the next driver, filling with fuel. They're allowed to do all those two things together. And Delatraz taking over. And as soon as the fuel hose is disconnected, up go the jacks, and there goes the fresh rubber, fresh shiny rubber with no cuts in it. The rain has stopped. It was only in one part of the circuit, it's gone away, but it's still there on the weather radar. Down the hill, out of pit lane, a very, very long pit lane here at Spa. Starts before La Source for the Formula 1 pits, comes all the way round the corner, and the exit on the climb out of Eau Rouge. It's a massive, massive pit lane. This is not a place where you need to be doing a splash and dash at the end of the race, because it will cost you the best part of a minute and a half, maybe a bit more than that. So Maserati leads temporarily because the pit stops are out of sync, but very shortly he will have to go into the pits, and that will put them back where they were. The gap was something like 20 minutes apart, the pit stops were. The Celine's been in trouble, had a little bit of an argument with a GT2 car that did exactly that, jumped across the curbs and came down heavily on the front of the Celine and damaged the front suspension. It's been fixed, and I hope that's just a little bit of driver fatigue causing that to happen, and that the suspension has not been further damaged, and that was an uncontrollable moment at the bus stop. But it was this side, that left front. You can see a little bit of the damage there on the side of the car. But they fixed it, it's still going. It's no longer a threat to Mike Hazeman and his crew in the number 4 Corvette. As you can see, it's right down in 5th place now and behind Christian Pescatori, who's got a few laps to go before he catches the Corvette. So I think the pressure's off for GLPK Carsport and the Corvette team in 3rd place, and as long as the engine doesn't actually go bang on them, they will get that car home to a podium. But it's still got a lot of racing to do. And speaking of Corvettes, here it is. Hazeman staying in and the oil going in. You can see him talking to the crew. They are filling it with oil as well as with fuel, and they will do the tyre change. And this is number 23. This is the Christian Pescatori car we were talking about. This is 4th place. Too far behind to do any damage to the Corvette, I think, and that is a windscreen wiper on the Maserati. Does that mean that rain has returned? As number 23 goes down the hill, leaving the pits. He's missed the chance to put wets or intermediates on if this rain is coming back. And the Ferrari crew have obviously thought about it, and they've taken the intermediate option. Look at the cuts in that tyre. That is not a slick tyre. It's not a full wet either. It's a dry intermediate. It won't last very long, so they will have to make a pit stop a bit sooner than they might otherwise if it does not actually start raining. But Lucas Luhr thinks it is here. The wiper going on the Porsche. P1 in G2. Porsche are going to go away with 1st and 2nd place in G2, and that's just another notch they can put on the wall at Weissach, but it's not what they came here for. But despite that, it has, as we say, cheered up everybody with a Porsche. Dry tyres, slicks going on to the lead Maserati. It's dry in pit lane, and it's largely speaking dry everywhere else. It's been so warm here at Spa this week, and the track is so hot that when the rain fell on it, it almost steamed away at once. And as you can see, the Maserati going down the hill, and there goes the Aston Martin. So that is number 5 back out in front. Dry track, as we were saying, but away goes number 5 up the hill. So the positions have been reversed, but not by much. Look at this. The gap is only the length of time. Let's have a look at it now and see if he comes around the corner. There he is. It's the length of the Camel straight. Number 5 leads. Here comes P2, and he is no longer a lap behind, is he? This is something like 10 seconds, maybe 12 seconds, perhaps even a bit more, but it's nothing like a lap. Fast work by the Maserati crews, and a little bit of delay for the Aston Martin has meant that the gap has closed up, and Andrea Montemini with the Celine comes in for his pit stop. We've got a race on at the front though. At the end of a 24-hour race, we have got a battle going on. Here's your race leader. Look who's behind him. P2 going into the bus stop by 3 seconds behind. We are 23 hours into a 24-hour race, and they are just seconds apart at the front, and that doesn't really happen in real life, does it? But there you go, Piccini and Van der Poel. Eric Van der Poel has been enormous. He has been mega during the course of this 24 hours, and so too has Andrea Piccini. As the Corvette goes in for another oil stop, Maserati are monitoring the situation on the pit wall. There's basically one more pit stop to go for each of these cars, and it's going to decide the outcome of this race. Not like it does in Formula One, but just where it falls and how long they can go afterwards. That will decide the outcome of the race. At the moment, it could be advantage Aston Martin, but look at this. Piccini mired up in GT2 and slower traffic, struggling, and he's now got a Maserati right up his tailpipe. That has allowed the number 1 car to close right up and tuck its nose underneath the diffuser at the back of the Aston Martin, and that's how close they are. It's a sprint race. They've turned the Proximus 24 hours into a sprint race. Piccini and Van der Poel are at it now, and we have got still a long way to go by anybody's standards except GT Racing. What is he thinking there? He knows he's on TV, but what is he thinking about? Maserati watching this situation. There's no way of telling which way it's going to pan out. It's down to these 2 drivers and the cars they have underneath them now. Eric Van der Poel and Andrea Piccini. Nose to tail around this circuit. It's all done for this crew. They have done everything. They've planned. They've worked out their strategy. They've done everything faultlessly. All they can do now is sit and watch and wait. Andrea Piccini has certainly not been outmanoeuvred or outbraved at any point around this circuit. He dives into the pit. Into the pit comes the Aston Martin. The lap's about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. A full pit stop is only just shorter than that. What can happen now is that the crew could have a brilliant pit stop and put him out in front of the Maserati by a bigger margin. They could have a poor pit stop and put him out behind the Maserati, or alternatively, Eric van der Poel can put in a storming lap and do it all by himself. This race could be decided in the course of the next couple of minutes around this Spa circuit, and it could be decided by the man driving this car, and it could be decided by the man changing wheels here on the Aston Martin. Dry tyres. Only 4 men allowed to touch the car. Anybody else out there and they are penalised. Get it out of here fast. He fires it up, way down the hill it goes. This is the GT2 leader. This is the 59 car. Rui Agres at the wheel, but we don't want to see that, do we? We want to see what happens between the Maserati and the Aston Martin battling for the lead. Here's the Maserati pit stop. Aston Martin out on track, having done the pit stop. This is going to be crucial. They look so relaxed, they've done it all before, they know they can't do any more than this while that fuel hose is connected. They can wash the windscreen, and the outgoing driver can help the incoming driver to get strapped in. Now the hose is off, they can change the tyres, and still only 4 people. Here is the Aston Martin coming up to finish its lap. Will it finish it soon enough? Heading towards the bus stop round Blanchimont now as the Maserati fires up. It's a long, it nearly didn't go. Look at how far he's going to go down the hill, right to the bottom through Eau Rouge and up the other side, heading uphill towards Radiol before he can come out of the pit lane. But at the bottom of the hill, he can come off the limiter. Where's the Aston Martin? There's the white line. Here's the Aston Martin. He's not going to make it. Down the hill. When he comes round this corner, he's going to see that Maserati disappearing up the road. And that's it. The lead has changed. So this is second place for the number 5, Aston Martin. And it's second place by, what, there's the Maserati, and it's not the full length of the straight, is it? It's less than it was when it was the other way around. So 5 seconds, 6 seconds is the gap, perhaps. But it is P1 Maserati and P2 Aston Martin. So it all changed. Look at that. The body language says they think they've done enough. Through the bus stop on towards La Source, and the checkered flag will definitely be raised above the start-finish line now in anticipation of Michael Bartels turning into the hill for the final time. You'll be able to see the checkered flag as he rounds the corner. There it is. 24 hours of racing ends. Michael Bartels wins for Vitafone Maserati, and they are all on the pit wall to celebrate with him. And what a celebration it's going to be later on. This is a very big win and a very important win for the team. And 24 hours and 1 minute, record number of laps, the fastest race in the history of the event, and it's a formation finish in GT2. Look, they're all coming through there. But the Spiker's missing from that. The number 80 Spiker's actually in 4th place, but otherwise that is leaderboard order as they go down the hill. What a big day it's been for these boys as well at AF Corsa, because everything has gone right for them as well.
In a record number of laps, making it the fastest race in the history of the event, Maserati triumphs. Aston Martin finishes a very strong and close second. This is the circuit Paul Ricard in the south of France. We're in Playboy paradise this weekend. Yachts, sun, bikini girls and money, plus a grid full of exotic supercars, all ready to go racing, adds up to a fabulous 2 days of entertainment and a truly extraordinary racetrack. Built in 1970 by eccentric millionaire Paul Ricard, it's now owned by billionaire Bernie Ecclestone, and it's the most sophisticated circuit in the world.
It's gone wrong in the dying laps of a race before now for this team as well, because here we are with another team that has not had the results that its car and its performances really deserve, and they are now on the brink of that success, but they have still got 34 closing in from behind, and he is still undoing them by about a second a lap. And he is halving the gap now. It was 19 seconds after the pit stops, but here's Josh Menton. He is now just 9 seconds behind Anthony Kumpen, and he can see this car ahead of him on the Mistral for certain. He might even catch a glimpse of it on the front straight in the heat haze. 30 degrees here, and that's the haze you can see on the track rising from the tarmac as Kumpen and number 4 come up towards the halfway point of the Mistral. Look back now for 34 in the distance. Behind that GT2 Ferrari there might well be a glimpse of blue and yellow. And no, there isn't, not yet. No, there he is, just dropped up from the dip in the track. I was looking further back, and that means he's even closer. I was looking right back down towards the end of the Mistral, but it was half distance. So Josh Menton's still reeling in Anthony Kumpen. He's getting closer and closer and closer, and we are heading towards the end of this race. 86 laps out of 87 on the counter, and Josh Menton can definitely see the number 4 car now, and he is definitely closer. As this circuit twists at the top and bottom, they can probably look across the track and into each other's cockpits and read the tachometer and see the shift lights coming on. And you can see that Kumpen's trying. He's had the wake-up call, and that car was just skipping away under acceleration there. He isn't waiting for Josh Menton to catch him up. He's driving that number 4 as hard as he can. Well, half the length of the pit straight now. There's an Aston Martin in between them. There's about 400 yards between them, but I don't think it's doable unless Anthony Kumpen gets it wrong, unless he makes a tiny, tiny little mistake here, unless he puts a wheel up on the edge of a curb and just gets it flicked sideways for half a second, unless something goes wrong, unless the front end just pushes too far into a corner or the back just starts to slide because the tyres are wearing. Those are the only things now. Not even traffic, I do not think, can allow Josh Menton to close this gap, and it is going to be Anthony Kumpen who takes the checkered flag at the 5th round of the FIA GT Championship. Corvette wins for the first time in 2006, and you can see the delight. Bert Longin on the pit wall still celebrating. Mike Hazeman's already on his way to Parc Fermé to see what happened and chat with Anthony Kumpen as number 62, Andrew Cicaldi, comes round the final couple of corners at Paul Ricard with Tim Mullen behind him, and he's slowing up now. Andrew Cicaldi is waiting for his teammate. It's Sugden in 3rd place. Tim Sugden in the JMB car has held on to 3rd place all the way through this race. And look, Andrew Cicaldi moves aside for the Porsche. He's waiting for the 63 car to close right up behind as they go over the line. It's going to be a team finish for Scuderia Ecos in GT2. And that's a GT3 Corvette. It doesn't affect the outcome of the race, and he moves aside for him, and there is the second of the red Ferraris with the Sol tyre on the bonnet, and it is 62 ahead of 63 as they go over the line. It is Scuderia Ecos's weekend at last, and it is a perfect formation finish for the 2 cars.
Here's the official result with just 3 seconds separating the Corvettes at the end of the race, and 3rd place makes it job done for Maserati.
The guys in the pits did such a great job. With really 40 kilos ballast, it made so much. You could see with Bartels, he couldn't follow at all. So they did a fantastic job in the pits. We won the race. We were 2nd fastest on track, but in the pits we won the race thanks to the mechanics.
In GT2, it was even closer after the Scuderia Ecos formation finish, and it was a good weekend for the Brits with Tim Sugden a strong 3rd.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, the car's been great all weekend. The guys have worked really hard. You know, they're trying to do the British Championship and this at the same time, so they're having to work doubly hard. But no, they've done an awesome job, and all weekend we've been the fastest car, and pays over the 1-2. It's fantastic.
This weekend's racing may have changed the championships only slightly, but what it has done is open them right out, with not long left on the calendar.
This is Maserati versus Celine, Yanis versus Bartels, and this is a pass. Look at it skating around under brakes, but he's pulled it off. He late braked the Maserati, much heavier Maserati, remember, carrying a big weight penalty, and the Celine only with 5 kilos on board. So you could see the advantage there going round the outside of the Racing Club Bratislava Porsche, and Michael Bartels already losing ground to Jarek Yanis, who is 1 and 2 seconds a lap quicker than anybody else on this racetrack at the moment, depending on whether he's stuck behind someone or not, and how often he gets stuck behind a Maserati. Jarek Yanis really showing how displeased he is in the best way possible. Look at this, watch that car just bouncing around under the brakes there, right on the limit of grip, absolutely on the limit, but a very convincing pass, and already a couple of lengths clear before they get halfway round the corner. This is GT2, this is the race leader in GT2, and he has been since the race started virtually, and now it looks like another convincing win for AF Corsa, and this is going to be really quite important in their championship. It's almost going to wrap up the driver's title for this pair, and with Salo now looking better and better in the 59 car, the team's championship is going to get a bit of a booster as well. Andrea Piccini, I can't help thinking, had 4 wheels off track then coming over that crest, but I think a lot of people do it. Starting to see the smoke from the tyres under braking, which tells you we are coming to the end of the tyre life, but this is what he's chasing. This is second place. This is Philip Peter, and he's got, I think it was a Lamborghini between him and the Aston Martin, and he's going to pick that off fairly swiftly, although the Lamborghini, it has to be said, the Murcielago, there it is again, is looking fairly good in about 8th place. He's having a steady, comfortable and very solid race this afternoon. That's pretty much what the team needed. So, race leader Jamie Davis is looking on for his victory finally this year, and it's going to come here at Dijon. And yes, this is the last lap, and you can see the relief on the faces of Thomas Biaggi on the left of the picture, and Andrea Bertolini on the right-hand side. This is pretty much job done for the number 2 car and crew, and Jamie Davis will still have his fingers and his toes crossed, and if he knows any prayers, now's when he'll be saying them. He's got a nice handy lead, but he just doesn't want anything to go wrong on this final tour of the 3.8 kilometre circuit here at Dijon. It's just about 2.5 miles. It's about 80 seconds, and he's more or less finished it now. He's only got 20 or so seconds left on the lap, and he'll be able to see the checkered flag when he comes round that final corner at Puas. He'll look up the main straight, and the flag is halfway along there. And this is it then for Davis and for Thomas Biaggi, despite the drive-through penalty, which did cost them 20 seconds. There is the checkered flag. Jamie Davis crosses the line to win this 6th round of the FIA GT Championship at Dijon at the end of 500 kilometres and not 3 hours. We're about 10 minutes early on the clock, but that is maximum race distance for a GT race, and it is big signs of relief, I can imagine, down there in the Maserati pits, and this is really good for them in the team's championship because they've got the maximum score for this car, and Michael Bartel's still looking good behind in the second car, so the team picks up more points, and the drivers' championship hasn't quite gone the way they wanted, but even so, this is not a bad weekend's work for Vitafone Maserati, and I think this team will go away delighted with what they have achieved here at this very, very difficult racetrack. So, rest of the field pulling in and coming into pit lane, and there are a lot of happy people here because there have been some good results all round, not least from this car from 33 and from the number 5 car, which gets onto the podium as well. Andrea Piccini makes it home into 3rd place. That is the official result at the end of the race.
And in the GT2, there was a new success for the AF Course team of Matteo, Bobby and Jaime Melo, ahead of Mullen and Niachos. And in the standings, that means Bartels and Bertolini lead the GT1 in the Maserati, Bobby and Melo in the GT2s.
For what looks like being a classic and crucial 7th round of the FIA GT Championship, we're at Mugello, a hillside circuit just half an hour north of Florence, in the heart of some of the most beautiful scenery and historic surroundings in all of Italy.
And there is the visibility, or rather there it isn't. What can you see? We're waiting for the starter to say yes, it's good to go. The green light comes on. No overtaking until you go over the start-finish line underneath the gantry, but they're already 4 abreast looking for visibility, and that's a car off. That's a Scuderia Ricos car. That is 62. That's Andrew Cicaldi, and first lap dramas already, and that's out of it. Look at the way that car's crabbing across the infield. Suspension damage, it's all over for him. Have a look again. Midfield is where we're looking. There he is. Came out of nowhere, but he came out of nowhere all on his own. There was nobody near him. And that car, I think, just got up on top of the water and floated away from him. Andrew Cicaldi talking about clearing it off the side now with the corner works on. This is the Maserati. This is Tony Verlander going backwards. And now trying to rejoin, so he's got up on top of the water and aquaplaned off as well, I should imagine, looking for a way back on. And that car really has been in the wars. It was heavily damaged during practice, missed a lot of the qualifying session. It was still being repaired when it came back after qualifying. That noise is just gravel clearing from the tyres. Don't worry about that, it's not the engine, it's still looking good. But it's about the only thing that is looking good, because there is nothing to see outside the screen of these cars. This is racing, and this is for position, believe it or not. Side by side, the 33 Aston Martin of Carl Wendlinger passing the Celine of Sasha Burt. The team have told Sasha Burt to take it easy and see if the weather improves just to get through this, and if people want to pass you, then let them. On board with Jamie Davis. What can he see? Absolutely nothing through the windscreen. The wiper hardly clearing the rain, and even if it does, the fog out there is just too dense in places. 23, this is Babini. These are the people. In fact, these two have really made a bit of hay while the sun hasn't been shining. Babini and his teammate behind him, number 24, is Fabrizio Gollin, who've come up to 2nd and 3rd place in these appalling conditions. Although it does look slightly better through the screen of the BMS Scuderia Italia Aston Martin that we're riding with now than it ever did through the Maserati windows for Jamie Davis and Tony Verlander. Look, you can actually see the next corner coming up. Plenty of time to get on the brake as Babini brings it left at the end of this lap. Now look along the front straight, and what can you see ahead of you? Just grey. Somewhere about 1 kilometre in front there is turn 1. It's a long, slow uphill right. But the timing caption's having trouble keeping up with the cars at the moment, because they are swapping positions, and you can see that some are much quicker than others. And this looks like a challenge, actually, from Gollin behind Babini. It does look as if Fabrizio Gollin, his teammate, erstwhile partner in the 23 car, is actually challenging for the corner. If you were the boss of this team, you probably want to be looking away from your television screen about now, because those two look as if they are joining some sort of battle, and they shouldn't really be squabbling with anybody until they can see them properly, and they can't see anything. We're on board with Verlander, who is now making up time after his earlier spin. Italian GT champions, this team, and it's a very young team, and leading the Italian GT championship this year and the Spanish GT championship as well. Verlander probably knows Mugello better than a lot of people here, although there are some who've spent many hours on this circuit, but he's definitely using that knowledge, because he is catching cars now, closing up in the spray. That is Gollin, and he's about to go past him, and he just drives around the outside of the Aston Martin as if it's a GT2 car. And, well, same tyres, no weight on board for the Aston Martins, the Maserati loaded with a little bit of extra ballast. But look at him now, Villander coming right up behind Babini in the 23 car, and on the inside of this rather tricky downhill right at Casanova. This is the one we were talking about. He is just straight past Babini and on his way, so he's made up 2 cars in the last half of the lap. And 2 places, obviously. Little bit of damage at the front, you can see there. But apart from that, he seems to be in fine shape. Looks very relaxed in the cockpit. And his next target now is the race leader. That was 4th and 3rd places, and he's now on his way, chasing after the man you just caught a glimpse of there. And there's his name at the top of that leaderboard. Andrea Bertolini is the race leader, and he's got a very fast Maserati closing in on him. Tony Villander looking very determined indeed at this early stage of the race. Back on board, this is Biaggi in 3rd place. The team will be keeping him up to speed, but he's thinking ahead. He and Michael Bartels need to get on with the battle for the lead of this race. They need to close with that Race Alliance Aston Martin. And on board with Biaggi now, that's a Ferrari in GT2, 58 or 59, that's all you can say. But this is Yanis, this is Delatraz. He is alongside him at the halfway point, or is he? Delatraz is holding the line, and Yanis is alongside. He's going to go round the outside again. He's just done it once. Can he make it work again? Yes, he can. Oh, the Aston Martin broke away at the front under braking. Delatraz nudges Yanis. Yanis is off into the gravel. It's still going. It's all gone wrong, horribly wrong for Jarek Yanis. And he's back on track, scattering gravel, and he's already back on the throttle. And he's already back after Jean-Denis Delatraz and that number 5 Aston Martin. He hasn't lost a place doing that, running wide, but of course he's lost his pursuit of the man he was chasing. He's lost his pursuit of a podium place here. And now he's got to do it all again. Here it is, round the outside. Watch the car on the left of the picture, is already breaking loose, and it just runs wide. Just a little nudge. That wasn't, by any standards, anybody's fault. That was a racing accident. Those boys were racing in tricky conditions, slick tyres on a drying track, and really both acquitted themselves well. And I do not think that Jarek Yanis will hold that against Jean-Denis Delatraz as we go on board with Thomas Biaggi. He's in 3rd place, and look at the car in front of him. See what that is? 2nd place. That is the number 1 Maserati of his teammate and team leader and team owner, Michael Bartels. And Biaggi is looking like he's a lot quicker than Michael Bartels at this stage of the race. What an uncomfortable position that is for Thomas Biaggi. We've already seen what a racy little individual he is and how he wants to get past people, but now, should he? What would you do if you were Thomas Biaggi? And if you were Michael Bartels, what would you be saying to your teammate on the radio if you could talk to him? Going either side of the Ferrari and up into turn 1. And it's the car ahead they need to get after, but if Biaggi is quicker than Carl Wendlinger in the number 33 Race Alliance car, then, and there it is, then Michael Bartels really ought to let him go past and go after him. They are both closing the gap, taking seconds out of Carl Wendlinger, but is there enough race left to go? I don't think so. They can almost see him. And as Wendlinger goes around, he is probably going to have to do one more lap, which he probably won't like, because this duo with Biaggi, it seems, pushing Bartels all the time, is closing in all the time. The gap went from 20 to 18 to 16. It went down in 2-second bites. But now Carl Wendlinger seems to have an answer for it any time he wants. And he seems to be able to be holding them back. They know that if they push harder, he will push harder. And the clouds are gathering. We are just about going to get away with this. It's about to turn torrential again at Mugello, but Carl Wendlinger is about to give Race Alliance and Red Bull Racing their first win of the new season as a team together with this Aston Martin. The 3-hour limit has been passed, and next time he passes the pits, the checkered flag will be waiting for him. We're on board with Thomas Biaggi in third place, following his team leader around now. And this is a good weekend for Vitafone Maserati. It has to be said, not the home win they wanted, but from a championship point of view, this is a very solid team result. This is a fantastic result for Carl Wendlinger and Race Alliance. This is a checkered flag that everybody in the paddock, I think, is going to be pleased about. And there it is, as Wendlinger wins it just as the rain begins. The wipers are coming on. Philip Peter on the pit wall, absolutely delighted with that. You don't need me to tell you how happy he is. The rain is not going to dampen their enthusiasm one little bit. And this is the battle behind, or it was so close behind. Maserati, Yanis, less than 0.3 of a second away from a podium finish. Second, third and fourth places covered by less than 1 second. And here is the other result that's going to get everybody on their feet. Collard and Riccitelli win GT2 with Mello and Bobby second and third.
That's the final leaderboard, and that's how close it was at the end. Yet another cliffhanger from this surprising series, and the fourth different manufacturer to claim a win this year.
We're going strong and strong. Was unbelievable race. I mean, this championship is getting better and better. You see that the first 5-6 car within, I don't know, 15 seconds, you need to push all the time. I really want to thank all our guys, Michelin, Red Bull, Jet Alliance, all our sponsors. They really pushed us hard to get also to achieve these results, and it's great. It's great.
In GT2, things were a lot more spread about, but this first win by Porsche was no skin-of-the-teeth affair. It was a strong and convincing performance from car and drivers.
Yeah, I mean, we were waiting for a victory since the beginning of the year, and win here in Italy in the home race in this condition, it's a very good feeling for us, for the team, for everybody.
Though Michael Bartels pinned up a note in the team pit box asking everyone to push for a Maserati 1-2, he still won't be disappointed with this result, a formation finish that pretty much confirms the championship for him and Bertolini. And pretty much the same is true in GT2, another wild card win, if you like, but the real championship business was still being done here today, and with the 62 car sidelined at the start, it would be a brave man who bet against Mello and Bobby, going all the way to the title now. As it is in the Drivers' Championship, so it shall be in the team's title race as well, only more so. And the benefit of a consistently successful two-car team is very apparent for the leading outfits in GT1 and GT2. And if at the end of the year the silverware goes anywhere except to the current leaders, we'll all be very surprised. Half an hour to the south of Venice on the Adriatic coast of Italy for the 9th and penultimate round of the FIA GT Championship from the compact, no, let's be honest, tiny circuit at Adria. So small it has an indoor paddock, the only circuit on the calendar to do so. You've heard us say this 2 or 3 times already this year, but this time it's 100% true. It's almost impossible to overtake on this extremely tight and twisty layout, so qualifying and the grid may be the most important of the year.
Well, they're saying hydraulics on the pit wall, but some points would help, but it isn't going to give them the title perhaps, and it might go to the final round as Jarek Yanis is pursued by Babini. We saw earlier on that Babini wanted that place, and now he's taken it and he's going for, oh no, he's right in the door of Andrea Piccini as he was going for the lead. He's punted Andrea Piccini off, and he's trying to restart the car. You've got a lot to do to restart the car. You have to get rid of the traction control as well in order to spin it round and get it pointing in the right direction. And now rejoins. Let's have a look at it. Just lost it under brakes. Now, Piccini goes deep into turn 4 there, and whap! It's the rear quarter there, not the door at all. It's just on the wing there, sent him straight into the pits and done all kinds of damage. The final hour of the last but one race of the season. Jamie Davis brings in the number 2 Maserati, hands over to Thomas Biaggi to take it to the flag. It's actually 45 minutes away. They've done quite well on their fuel. Had a little bit of help from an early safety car, which means the fuel runs a little bit longer. The tyre men waiting to go. They're making a decision on tyres here, aren't they? Look, they're thinking about that. It could save quite a lot of time by running the tyres to the finish, but I can hear the guns going, but that can't be for them. The car must still be, oh no, it's up now on its jacks, and they are going for tyres. Now, they said they would last, but I don't think they can last a double stint. So on go fresh Pirellis, and the Celine is in the pits as well. The race leader, Sasha Burt, handing over to Andrea Montemini for the final 41 minutes of this race. It's all very close at the top still. We're talking about seconds between them. In comes Babini. This is the 4th time he's stopped today. One of them's a drive through, so that's his 3rd pit stop. And there really should only have been 2, even though they grabbed a bit of an advantage under the safety car yellows. And so that isn't really going to figure very highly in the results, I don't think. Still, those glowing brake discs as Montemini goes back out in the number 9 car. You can see the carbon discs in the wheel wells there lighting up bright red in the sunshine, which really is, and there it is again. It's the front ones, the back ones a little bit, but the front ones really are alight, and that is really quite extraordinary. They do get that hot. I mean, when you're running discs at 400 and 500 degrees, they do get that hot, but it's so unusual to see them in bright sunshine, which really makes you think they're hotter than you'd really like them to be. The brake technicians say they are hotter than normal, but they're all right hotter than normal. On board with Biaggi, 2nd place now with 37 minutes to go. Looking for Montemini, who is just 6 seconds in front of him, 9 seconds the gap from Montemini back to the 2nd of the Maseratis, which means that Bertolini is just 3 seconds behind us. And the GT2 battle still undecided because we're waiting for, and into the pits comes the number 9 car. This is the race leader. Smoke from that wheel arch, lots of smoke. Well, we were right about the brakes, I think, because there's no damage there. The front brakes definitely smoke, clouds and clouds of smoke off the discs there. And the Maserati crew watching this, you can almost see the smiles from here, can't you? Because this means we're on board with the race leader now. Thomas Biaggi has taken over while the Celine is in the pits. It's a Maserati 1-2 in Italy, which won't go down too badly with the crowd or with the team or back at the factory. And at the moment, that means that they're on for the driver's title as well. Bartels and Bertolini are on for the time. The brake discs are on fire. The carbon is burning. The calipers have got too hot. That's carbon, that's brake fluid. That looks like the end of the line. That looks like retirement for the Celine, and that means that Sasha Burt's hopes of getting, yes, warming his hand. Where are the chestnuts? It looks like Sasha Burt's hopes of getting into the Drivers' Championship battle at the final round are done and dusted now. And it looks as though the driver's title has just been decided here in pit lane.
I don't know what's happening. I can drive in my stint, which was 1 hour 10 minutes, gap of 30 seconds. When he come in the car now, all of a sudden he had a brake problem. When I had the car, the brakes was fine and the brake pedal was really hard. After 2 hour 10 minutes, I don't know what's happening.
Well, very unhappy, Sasha Burt, indeed, and you can quite understand why, because he just said goodbye to the World Championship. 5th pit stop for the number 23 car, just taking rear tyres, having a look up there to make sure everything's all right. And that really hasn't worked out too well for them. Christian Pescatori talking to the team on the radio, and perhaps he's flat spotted them, but it really hasn't been their afternoon. And they've come off the jacks with nothing in the wheel well there. The new tyre hasn't gone on. They're just a little bit premature. Go straight back up again. Hope that hasn't done any damage. And the hammer gun goes on, and away it goes. Mike Hazeman now in 3rd place. Now that the Celine has gone off, that's put him in a podium finishing position. Just a little bit of smoke there as the Corvette locks up under braking. And we're on board now with Hazeman. Here's the number 1 Maserati. This is your world champion driver. This is Andrea Bertolini. And unless something awful happens in the next 3 minutes, Andrea Bertolini and Michael Bartels, having already taken the team title for Maserati, are about to lift the driver's crown as well. The Celine back on track, but it's lost something like 13 or 14 laps as a result of that brake problem. They've replaced the front brakes, but really that's destroyed all hope of the title as long as this car keeps on running faultlessly. And that's really what Maserati has done all through the season. Their key to their success has been this consistent ability to keep going at the same pace for 3 hours. That's the nature of endurance racing. That's what we're here for. And really that team has managed it best and most often. And the reward is there to see. So we've got 2.5 minutes just less than on the clock. So there are going to be at least 2 more laps in this. What happens is when the clock gets to 0, the checkered flag is brought out, and then the next time the leader goes across the finish line, the flag will drop and the race will end. But this is quite clearly coming up to the finish line now, going past the pit lane entrance, and there you can see the finish line ahead with about 1 minute and 50 on the clock, and they're lapping in the 1:14s, 1:15s. So unless he drives a very slow lap and invites a little bit of an attack from behind, there is the Celine, just a glimpse of it. That's Michael Bartels in the centre of the picture there, and just buttoning up his overalls ready for the dash to the pit wall. Unless he drives a very slow lap, he's going to do this lap and another one. A rare glimpse of the number 5 on the gear counter there. There are only 2 places it happens on this circuit, on this car, and it happens for about 3 seconds tops, and then they're straight back down the gearbox. That's a 4th gear straight going into the right-hander there. And watch now, just going up the gearbox. We're not going to ride with him all the way round because the Maserati crew have come out onto the pit wall to watch the race leader start his final lap of the race. The only 3rd gear corner on the circuit, he's just been round. Everywhere else in this car is in 2nd. That's how tight and twisty it has been, and that's how much pressure all of these cars have been under. They've been very thoroughly raced this afternoon, and that really has put enormous strains on absolutely everything. We've seen driveline problems for the Lamborghini, which had a drive shaft go, and now we're seeing a faultless outing here from the Maserati pair. It's going to be a 1-2. This is the final lap. Thomas Biaggi is on his way to the checkered flag. 24 seconds left on the clock. As soon as it hits 0, the flag will come out, ready to greet him as he crosses the line. And somewhere about 10 seconds behind him is his teammates in the number 1 car, and when they go over the line, they will be world champions drivers as well as teams. So on board there, working the gearbox, 2nd gear. Most of the corners here are 2nd, as we've said, and the clock's gone to 0. And you can see that Thomas Biaggi isn't really hammering it anymore. It's all done and dusted, and the only person who can get on his case now is his teammate, and that is not going to be an issue. 3rd gear through this little loop at the back, and now just on the cruise. Late afternoon sun. Now he's waiting now for his teammate. We're waiting for the number 1 car to join him, and we've just got a glimpse of that GT2 Ferrari. They did make a pit stop. They did go down to 2nd as predicted, so we'll tell you the result there, but I think you can guess. And is the number 1 Maserati going to get here in time, or is it not? The checkered flag is just a couple of yards away. The start line is further away than the finish line, and the Maserati pits are almost on the finish line, so the checkered flag in there, in the mix with the Maserati flags. and Thomas Biaggi takes the checkered flag. So the number 2 car gets its second win of the season for Biaggi and Davis, and somewhere behind it is the number 1 car heading, oh look at that, Marino Franchitti. How happy is he? The 63 car took the victory. Clever pit call from the pit wall by the team gave them an advantage. There is the result though. Second place, the championship decider, as long as the number 5 car was in the garage, and Sasha Burt, still going, was down in 6th place.
And it's very good for Scuderia Ecos too. Well, a bit of a mixed bag really, with one car in the wall and the other one on the top of the podium. But it's never a bad weekend when you're celebrating a win. Though the celebrations were cut short at AF Corsa when the 59 car was excluded for a minor technical infringement in post-race scrutineering. But then the celebrations started again, because Salo and Aguas were the only people who could stop Mello and Bobby, lifting the driver's crown in GT2. With Zach Speed and Phoenix both in bother this weekend, no one can catch Bartels and Bertolini in GT1, so that leaderboard confirms them as drivers' champions in GT1. And despite enduring something of a nightmare weekend, the most consistent performers in GT2 have won their title here today. Jamie Mello and Matteo Bobby bringing Ferrari its 3rd title of the season, as they add drivers and manufacturers' crowns to the team title that went to AF Corsa last time out in Budapest. So what we've got on this podium is a lot of rather happy people with a mixed bag of things to celebrate. And if we look at the final scoreboard of the weekend, we must acknowledge that with an extra car in Dubai next time out, Maserati could, in theory, take the manufacturer's title in GT1 away from Aston Martin.
We are just 10 minutes away from the end of this race as we go on board with Thomas Biaggi in 3rd place. The battle's still going on, and indeed some of these drivers putting in the fastest laps of the race after 3 hours of competition, when they probably feel like a squeezed out sponge themselves. So no shortage of commitment here. And here is the race leader now. Andrea Piccini has got 6 seconds in hand. Oh, and there he is, he's in the pit lane, and that's it, the battle is diffused. Now, that means that Andrea Piccini can, if he wants to, start thinking about backing it off. Just 5 seconds at a standstill there for the Corvette Mike Hazeman, but that's enough to give Andrea Piccini all the breathing space he needs. It's not a long pit lane here, it's not a long pit stop at Dubai, but that really will cause a complete change in the picture at the top. Piccini telling Jarek Yanis to get out the way, and he won't take kindly to that, Jarek Yanis, but obviously the number 5 car is quicker than the slightly damaged number 33, and at a suitable moment Jarek Yanis will move aside and let him go through, and there it is. Yanis not a man to obstruct the race leader when he's not in the battle for the lead himself, and there is really not much of a battle going on, it has to be said, because when Mike Hazeman comes round past the pits on his outlap, we'll see what the picture is. There's the number 3 car, the contentious number 3, still going. It's had a few problems, but has it done enough to demonstrate to the FIA that this electronic system is controllable and can really bring costs in racing down? Engine life is really what this is all about. The restrictor means that the engines wear themselves out fairly quickly, but the electronic system gives a little bit more longevity to a race engine. I think this engine in fact is on its 3rd outing, and that rather proves the point. And if that's the case, then everybody in GT racing will be pleased, because their bank balances will benefit enormously. Piccini now, we're on board with the race leader, and it seems we're not backing off, even though we perhaps could do. It's put Mike Hazeman something like 25-26 seconds behind him, that pit stop. And Thomas Biaggi was in 3rd place, and the gap between 2nd and 3rd has halved as a result. He was about a minute behind, and now he's about 30-40 seconds behind. So it's changed the picture, but not dramatically. But it does mean that Andrea Piccini isn't under pressure. And he may want to back off now. He'll be looking at the clock and counting the laps. The way it works is this: when the clock reaches 0, they show the checkered flag to the race leader the next time he comes past. So it is 3 hours and whatever lap the car happens to be on. If Andrea Piccini was careful, he'd have a think about this, or the team would. They might just knock off the speed a little bit and cut this race distance down by a lap and thereby claim the win just a little bit earlier. Piccini at the moment showing no sign of doing anything of the sort. They're lapping in the 156, 157. Look at this. As he goes over the line, there is about 2:08 on the clock, which means he will get back here before the counter reaches 0, and that means he will have to do another lap. So he's going to do this lap and one after it before the checkered flag will drop. And into the pits comes the number 1 Maserati. Well, has this been through the wars or what? It's been in, it's had a suspension change in a couple of minutes on that damaged front side. Now Andrea Bertolini's had to come in for a fuel splash as well. But again, the Maserati crew don't stop racing just because things are going against them, and it's back out there, and it's back out there at full speed. And speaking of not stopping racing, here's a man who hasn't stopped all afternoon. His second stint in the car, 55 to 60 degrees inside the cockpit of these cars, can be higher. Marino Franchitti said during the weekend that driving the F430 was an absolute pleasure at 55 degrees after doing the Panos, which races in America at about 70 in the cockpit. So it does vary quite a lot depending on how the ventilation has been designed, but even so, 50 degrees is an awful lot of cockpit temperature. Not all the drivers run cool suits either. Some do, and they have an ice box and they get a little bit of temperature reduction that way, but cool suits are a little bit finicky. They are prone to leaking, and we have seen it in the past where a cool suit has leaked and stopped a car during the race. So some drivers just won't have anything to do with them. Some will take them into the car and put up with the extra bolt and that little worry. But you can see the counter on the top left now, 27 seconds. Andrea Piccini is going to cross the line before that counts down to 0, and he is going to do one more lap. Just coming up to the last couple of corners and on to the start-finish straight. 13-12, he's going to go across it with about 8 seconds to spare. 9 seconds it was. So this now is the final lap of this race. And Piccini obviously not going to worry about his fuel. He is being beset by Jarek Yanis, who let him go, but has then stayed with him more or less ever since. And I think that might well be that Piccini isn't quite as fast now as he was, say, 5 laps ago, ever since the Corvette went in for its splash and dash. But even so, with an Aston Martin we know to be slightly damaged in the steering department, Jarek Yanis showing that he definitely does live up to billing. And hopefully he will be back in this championship next year, but he can pretty much pick his seat, you think, or his championship. He can pretty much go wherever he thinks the career move will take him, because he has proved to be the most dramatic driver on the circuit. However, this weekend it's been all about Phoenix Racing, the German team with the Aston Martin. Jean-Denis Delatraz once again been very quick in the middle, and Andrea Piccini, the young Italian driver, another one of the stars of this series, quick in almost anything. 2 good solid stints. He's been in battles every second almost that he's been out there. It hasn't been easy for him, it wasn't easy for Delatraz, but now as the sun sets over the Dubai Autodrome and it is almost darkness here in Dubai, we are going to see at last a victory for the Phoenix Racing crew. They've been threatening to pull this off all through the year. They were quick at round 1 and Silverstone, but the luck just hasn't been with them. This afternoon it has been, and they are now just metres away from their very first checkered flag of the 2006 season. Everybody likes to win the last race of the year. Couldn't have gone to a better team, couldn't have gone to a nicer team and a better pair of drivers. There it is. Checkered flag time at the end of 3 hours, and finally Delatraz hanging on the wire there. Jean-Denis Delatraz has climbed the wire in pit lane to wave Andrea Piccini over the line. It is checkered flag time, and Andrea Piccini, you can see the relief.
The driver's title had already been won, but that brilliant performance from Phoenix Racing boosts Piccini and Delatraz into second spot on the leaderboard. A race win just didn't do the trick for Tim Mullen, half a point shy of getting in among the AF Corsa drivers crowding the top end of the leaderboard. And hopefully that means they'll be back for more next year for another 10 rounds. The season kicks off in China and then does another tour of Europe's finest racetracks on its way to Zolder in October.
So that's it for the FIA GT 2006 season review. We hope you enjoyed all the action. And from everyone here at Motors TV, drive safe, and we'll see you again with more GT racing in 2007.